All right, so we will reconvene in the break. The panels had handed to them a series of plans so that they were entered into the record. Marcus, can you please tell us what it is we have?
Certainly. So before the panel now is Appendix H of the Land River Sea Consulting report. So effectively what that does is it combines the flood depth information and the velocity information from the model into a peak hazard map for Gore and Mataura townships for both 2% AEP and 1% AEP, and classifies hazard risk 1 through 6 through a graduating colour palette around the different areas and the likely associated risk or hazard of that flood inundation.
So in terms of the plan that we should be using as set out in the submissions that have come from Environment Southland, which is the one that we should be looking at?
The 1% AEP. So there's a number of 1% images based on the different locations through Gore and through Mataura.
So I have 1% AEP historic climate, map 2 of 3.
That's correct. Is it 1 of 3, 2 of 3 and 3 of 3?
Thank you. So amongst the other papers that we've been looking at today, there's a printout of the planning map as notified, and I'm sure that, and that's the, so for just looking at the one at Gore, there appears to be a very close correlation to the extent of area shown on the proposed plan as notified to what's on that plan that you're getting at us to look at now. If I'm looking up on State Highway 94, in fact the material that's on the Environment Southland or on the Land River Sea report is actually reducing the area, and it seems to follow as we proceed through Central Gore and to the south to be almost identical to what is shown on the notified planning maps. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes.
So when it, I guess, comes to the scope of playing with maps, there's no difference really in the extent. And even when we look at the Tonkin and Taylor maps, there is very little difference between what's in the notified plan and what's in the Tonkin and Taylor reports.
Correct.
So where does that leave us then in terms of what is it that you're wanting to achieve through your submission?
I guess where it leaves us is the management approach associated with the risk category. So how, the question is effectively how does the RPS criteria around avoid significant risk and manage other risk get implemented based around the flood maps.
So I guess it's worth asking to Brett, with everything you've heard today, it doesn't seem to us to be an issue about how wide the maps go. It's how we deal with the data that we've got within the maps that we're notified. So has your view changed much at all in terms of what you've heard today on the way that we deal with this?
I think that the concept, and I signalled that. Sorry.
Do you need the microphone? I'm not sure.
Yes.
I signalled in my evidence quite clearly that these are a preferred approach. There's no question there. And in terms of how we address that, it's not just in isolation in terms of embedding it. There's the mechanics of how it embeds and how it actually works with the rule framework. and we need to turn our minds to that as well. You might be able to pick through that in terms of, you know, resolving the challenges where rules and activity statuses are related to it. But it relies on putting two models together. So this is what I'm hearing you outlay for me to respond to. Please correct me if I'm misinterpreting. Combine the two models together, and then the rule framework needs to speak to those maps because they need to sit within the plan.
It's possible. I might just correct you because I'm maybe not thinking that they get combined together. I think our rule framework acknowledges where we've got the really fine-tuned information, we can respond to that with confidence in the rule framework. And then outside of the Gora Mataura areas and the other settlements where we know and we've got expert evidence telling us it's coarse, but it's still a good general flag. And that in itself means that we should be thinking about these levels of information differently and therefore our reliance on them differently. So I was actually thinking that would potentially be reflected in your rule framework as well.
So
So
Marcus
maybe-
and then Brett.
Yeah.
What I might just, hopefully it assists the panel, is indicating that Environment Southland is in the process of getting the modelling for the rest of the Gore district furnished through Matt, and effectively that's looking to be completed fourth quarter this year, so prior to June 2025 or first quarter next financial year, so before August this year is the plan. So that effectively, I guess the point that it raises is that the modelling is going to continue getting improved, associated with climate change, associated with roughness, as Matt sort of talked about around debris getting caught up on bridge piers or bridge abutments, vegetation within the flood plain. That all those sort of factors have an indication of flood extent and depth. So depending on how that model rolls out, there's additional flood information coming that will assist the panel in understanding this issue moving forward, whether it's Tonkin and Katayla or Environment Southland modelling. There is modelling still
Coming through the pipe.
correct.
So that being the case, the key thing that we're really doing is setting up the framework to allow that to then enter in some future plan change. But at that point, as that new information comes in, if we've done our job well, it could be quite an easy process at that point if we're anticipating the same level of detail to come. And that's really what you're signalling, isn't it? And it's really not far away.
Yes, it would just be about making sure the maps were in the plan, as Brett's indicated, whether that's a re-notification of the map, the plan, and the map sits against the existing framework that's set up in the district plan, or whether that, how that works, mechanics and timing.
But what we do know from the experts is that the guidelines that are giving us these gradations of risk, that's going to be our constant, and really it's the further refinement of our tier 3 to a tier 4 and our tier 1 or 2 up to 3 or 4, but all of it within those same guidelines.
Back to you, Brett.
Back to me, and my view on where we're at. All right, well, setting aside issues of scope,
Yep.
and Section 32 matters around financial and economic impacts and all those elements, obviously I'd need to defer to legal in terms of their view in that space, and we'll have the benefit of Shelley tomorrow to walk us through that. It certainly requires further discussion around the policy settings, because they are informing the activity statuses. So where ES is indicating avoid, where ES is indicating avoid unless, and where ES is indicating mitigation is acceptable. So a manage policy. it's quite hard to have those policies in the plan and not map your rule framework to them. So at the moment, the rule framework follows right through. We've got 3 spatial overlays. Granted, they are what they are. And they map directly to the policies. They're specifically worded in the policies. So the policies map then that higher order direction through to the RPS. So whether you agree with that or not, there is an alignment. The rules then map into that. And I've indicated that, for example, at paragraph 207 in my 42A, there's a table there that just shows that general alignment. There is another table that further expands that in terms of the rule alignment, which is based on the GNS assessment, which ES requested to be taken as part of the submission. I've done that later. I won't bother referring to it right now unless you specifically want it. But circling back to how would it work? Well, the first challenge, setting aside all those other matters, would be you're going to have very reliable information and rules tied to that, and we'd have to work through the hazard categories and the activity statuses, etc., etc. And then you would have the balance of areas which are just the existing notified overlays. So you'd have to have rules that map to those. So when that point comes where you re-notify your plan on the expanded model, what happens to those rules? Do you clearly want to supersede those rules and remove them? But you would have to do that through that process when you bring in the new plan.
What we're exploring, I guess, and ignoring those other issues in the meantime in terms of scope and the rest of it.
Yeah.
Given that there's a very close correlation between the boundaries of what the work from ES has done and what has been notified, what opportunities are there to adopt a variable approach within the notified area related to risk? And clearly, as you described, that will require a change to the policy framework, and the Southland District Council submission to the policies is flagging that. And what Environment Southland are wanting, I guess, is that within the area that is currently notified, having differences in the risk based on the H1 to H6. If we were to adopt what ES are asking for, that would be the outcome.
What would you be adopting though? We don't have clear amendments proposed.
No, you don't yet. And so what I guess is going to be the outcome here is the potential for direction from the panel to put your heads together to work out something. And then we'll need to consider further how that differs from what was actually notified and what scope have we got. I think there is a very clear message coming through from the advice that we are being given that we as a panel have a responsibility to achieve certain outcomes given the directions of the RPS, given the effects of allowing continued development on land that is subject to inundation. Now, how we do that, we need to explore what we've got at present, and if our ability to give the correct outcome goes beyond that, then clearly you're looking at variation to achieve it. And whether council's prepared to go through that process is beyond our control. So really what we're doing at this stage is exploring the option of, if we're to give effect to Environment Southland submission within the bounds of the area as notified, what would it look like? And Marcus quite deliberately said, look, I haven't gone and looked at the policies and rules, but if you want, I'm quite happy to go away and do it. It's just that I think from the panel's point of view, if you went away and did it and actually did it together with you, so that there was a degree of, I guess, consensus amongst yourselves.
Yeah, and I think one thing we'd be keeping in mind, and that you'll obviously have in mind as well, is because the question of scope is there, but we do have submissions, so we do know there's some room to move. The idea would be to just hone in on those points of difference, and that clearly would seem to be the H3, H4, even just looking at this map 2 of 3 in the Appendix H, and the pink area in the notified version. Within that pink area, it's mostly degrees of H3 and H4, which, based on the evidence, might also be the line where you go from significant, well, that's a question, where there is some room to move. But I guess what we'd be interested in is moving to the extent that you need to respond to the best information we've got, without throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
I'm sure Brett will want to carry on from here, but essentially where he's gotten to with his recommendation is pushing that as far as we believe we can with scope. So his recommendation to incorporate sort of the information that ES have provided in terms of determining what the finished floor level is, etc., is a way of incorporating that best information that we have available within the scope that we have. So I guess our position is that that recommendation in Appendix A with the supplementary evidence is that compromise between providing for as much of the quality information that we have, keeping in mind that as far as the public's concerned, they saw these maps 15 minutes ago. That's where he's landed. In terms
and
of,
if we agree with you at the end of the day, then the only option to arrive at the right solution moving forward is a variation.
correct, yeah.
But we want to explore what it actually looks like, and let's compare to where we're at.
Yeah, and I guess that variation, Brett touched on it earlier, would be incorporating a district-wide updated flood modelling based on updated information, and then you'd have the ability to bring the public along for the ride of what that sort of categorisation of flood management actually looks like. We'll talk about scope tomorrow more anyway with legal.
Okay, so something else to think about. Do hazard rules have immediate effect?
Not according to our current PDP that was discussed in hearing stream 1, I think, with Matt.
Okay.
So the PDP hazard rules don't currently have immediate legal effect. Yeah. A council would have had to make a decision to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So does that require going to the Environment Court? Or can the council just resolve?
So I'm not quite sure I understand.
Well,
your
let's say
question.
there was a variation.
Yeah.
Could the rules in a variation take legal effect from the date of notification if it's a resolution of council?
If it's a resolution of council.
Or does it have to go to the Environment Court?
I don't believe it does, but
Kind of leading into a legal
Yeah,
side of confirmation.
not sure.
Okay, so
yeah.
it's a question for...
Yeah, I mean,
tomorrow.
any decision you make on this would obviously have
Yeah, and
legal weight.
if we've got to wait for a variation, and I guess what Marcus is saying, wait a few more months and you'll have the whole district. What do we do in the meantime? Because decisions are going out in August.
Yeah, I guess our recommendation is in that Appendix A of what we believe the best decision would be for natural hazards in the interim.
Well,
but
it's
that's
a
up
clear,
to-
it's a clear, detailed chapter that is transparent and has been on the table for some time. At the moment, we're still in concept phase for this other one. I'm not, pushing back on it. I'm just saying in terms of comparing the two. So there is a pathway forward, but the other pathway still needs to actually be cemented in terms of what does that look like. And we don't know how long that will take, whether we reach agreement on that or not.
we haven't looked at the body of your section 42A report that deals with a number of issues. And I'm reluctant to start on that today, given that two of us have another meeting to go to in about half an hour. I'm also reluctant to keep Marcus on a coat hanger to be pulled out as necessary. But tomorrow morning, is it tomorrow morning we're having legal submissions?
Yes. Shelley's available from 9,
Yeah,
so whenever suits the panel.
yeah, we're not starting till 9:30.
Is
Okay.
according to this 9?
That's the old version.
Okay.
It changed about, what, 5 minutes ago? But I'm keen to get feedback from ES on the discussion that takes place tomorrow morning. If you're able to liaise with the admin team, because tomorrow morning at 9:30, if I can just get some input from behind, can you tell us what's happening tomorrow?
What do you mean, Keith?
Well, who have we got down when?
Oh, okay. So there has been some planning, some timetable updates. So tomorrow we're starting 9:30 a.m. and we're waiting to hear back from the parties to confirm. But it will follow with tele companies at 9:30 to 10 a.m. And then we will have that followed with Alliance at 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. But this is all depending. We haven't heard back from them, and then that's up to the panel's discretion that we haven't heard back from how it follows after that.
So I think... No, because Cliff won't be here. Thank you. So if we were to say 10:30, we will hear from Shelley. So Marcus has got a time to work to, and followed by finish going through the 42A report. Because after those two in the morning, we've got no others, have we? No. Yeah, that's what I'm in the process of asking, yes. So would that work for you, Marcus, 10:30? Oh, it's only an hour away, but either, whatever suits you. Video works fine, but seeing your body language in person is frequently helpful too.
Perfect. Is it the subtitles on my face that you like the look of when you talk?
Use emojis.
No, I think the interaction actually plays a bit better when you're here in person, other than putting your hand up on the screen and not necessarily seeing it immediately.
Yep, I can be here tomorrow.
Yeah, so that will be at 10:30. So from the panel's point of view, is there anything else we can usefully do tomorrow, or do we want to use the rest of the time available to ourselves to actually absorb what's happened today and work out, refine our questions for tomorrow? In the hands of the panel here. Cliff, you're relaxed. You're relaxed.
I'd love a discussion so we can get our questions and...
Yeah, yeah. Maria?
Yeah, my preference is to resume tomorrow, and then we can just go through the whole of the section 42A after legal, and yeah, just ponder it a little bit further overnight. I think that's probably quite helpful.
All right, so helpful with our advisors, both of you, okay? All right, so we will adjourn then until tomorrow morning at 9:30. Thank you everyone for your input today. A lot to absorb for us all, and hopefully we've all got a clear mind in the morning. Thank you.